Hi y'all. How you all doing today? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Karen Vibes. Alright, so today is rather a bleak day and it's raining off and on in Brownstown here. I wanted to run out to the road, run out to the town to get some stuff and come back, and I said then I would do my live, do my reading, and I just decided, okay, then why not just do some and then go and come back. So welcome everyone, welcome. Hope you all having a good day. I know it's lunchtime now for a lot of folks, but anyway, welcome. Thank you for inviting me to your space. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me read, listen to my stories. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you. All right, so as you all know, those who have been following my page, my space, we've been reading the book Minty Alley. Alright, so you can find my page on YouTube, and that's Karen Vibes, so that's KrenVibes with an exclamation sign. You can find me on YouTube, so you can follow my stories that I've been reading, and then this book that I've started recently, Minty Alley. So as I usually do, the name of the book is Minty Alley. The name of the book, I'm just trying something, guys. Trying to figure out something. The name of the book is Minty Alley, and it's written by C.L.R. James and narrated by me, read by me, Karen Weir. Alright, so we had stopped at chapter 5. We didn't start chapter 5 yet, but that's where we are going to be reading now, chapter 5. So the part we had stopped is part where it says, "Don't you worry, Ella," said Haynes. "We'll have to make the best of this for the time being." "Don't you worry," he smiled. "I'll stay, and I think I shall get to like it very well." Because I think that was the time when he had wanted to move, and then when him starts to leap of excitement in the yard and having affairs and whatever, that just spiced him up to stay. So him never bother move again. Told Ella that he's not gonna move again. Alright, so we're at chapter 5. So let's get into the meat of the matter. So if you're having your lunch or a cool drink or a cup of tea, enjoy and listen to me read. Alright? So chapter 5. The nurse dominated the house. When she was not there, the others talked about her. For a time, but not for long. She fascinated even Ella, who never let Haynes go long without telling him all she knew or thought. For 72 hours after her return, the nurse slept almost continuously, only getting up to eat and to talk a little. She usually worked for the white people who could afford one nurse for the day and another for the night. But the nurse was greedy. That was Ella's phrase, and always worked day and night. She could do this for weeks. When she came home, she slept for 2 or 3 days and then emerged as fit as when she left. She did not work in the kitchen, but she took charge of the house. She had it scrubbed and cobwebbed. She shifted the pictures. She sat on the top step while Maisie, for hours, and Phyllis, Archer, and Wilma at odd times cleaned and varnished the furniture. She bought new curtains. She made Ben and Archer clip the hedgings. Supper was more often eaten in the dining room than in the kitchen. But even when they ate in the kitchen, there was always a cloth spread. One day, she brought a large fish when the hawker came into the yard and made fish soup. It was an occasion. She mixed multicolored cocktails. She made jokes all through the day, particularly at supper, which was punctured with choruses of laughter. Phyllis often had to beg her to stop. Sometimes Mrs. Rose protested against these jokes, but feebly she herself was laughing so much. Some of the best Ella, who was not squeamish, refused to repeat to Haynes. On a very hot day, she would have a bath at midday, just before lunch. And after lunch, with her hair drying on her shoulders, she sat in the yard under the mango tree on one chair, with her feet on another, smoking cigars and drinking tumblers of brandy and soda, from which she gave Maisie sips. She grew very red in the face and a little more talkative, but that was all. Once she knocked at Miss Atwell's room, insisting on going in and had a talk with that invisible person. On Phyllis' birthday, the postman brought 2 cards, one from her lover and one from number 2, Minty Alley. The nurse had sent it. Everyone was happy that morning. Phyllis was almost as pleased over the one as over the other. But though the eager Haynes looked with all his might, he could see nothing in the behavior of Ben or of the nurse to confirm what he had seen through the crack in the wall. Ben usually went to town after lunch, returning in time for supper to check Phyllis' accounts. On rare occasions, he stayed and drank brandy and soda with the nurse, but very openly. He called her nurse. She called him Mr. B. Mrs. Rose also called Ben Mr. B. She and Mrs. Rose were affectionate, often tender with each other. After work, they sat talking in the kitchen. When Ben was at home, the 3 of them talked. Haynes sat in his room on the edge, expecting at any minute to hear the murmur of voices burst into dramatic explosion, but nothing ever happened. Round about 11, he would hear them get ready to go in. They would come out leisurely, and Mrs. Rose would close and lock the kitchen door. They would go up the dining room steps together, and the dining room would close behind them. Mrs. Rose did not know, obviously. So tranquil was everything that Haynes at times felt that he had not seen what he had seen. So when he saw the other day with the nurse and Mr. Ben kissing him, I said, no, sir, something not right. Anyway, let's read on. So Haynes at times felt that he had not seen what he had seen, but had dreamt it. He was almost persuaded to speak to Ella. If she knew anything, she would tell. But Haynes, for once, preferred to say nothing to her and kept his secret. The nurse rather ignored Haynes. They gave each other the time of day, and that was all. Until one morning, Sonny, her son, was the cause of sudden and violent contact. The nurse idolized Sonny. She paid $2 a month for him at an exclusive private school. She dressed him expensively. She gave him frequent pocket change. The school was not near, and she paid someone not far from it to give Sonny a good hot lunch. On mornings before he set out, and on afternoons when he returned, she embraced him and kissed him in an almost sensual manner. With a string of Mammy's darlings, Sonny boys, honeys, and the like. Once Haynes caught Ben looking rather savagely at the nurse indulging in one of these rhapsodies over her son. It was the only time he ever saw anything indicating the special relationship between the two. One morning, the nurse went away early. Haynes remained at home that day, nursing an injured foot. A case of books had fallen on his chin and bruised him severely. He had struggled on with his work, but his limp was so obvious that old Carrot had told him to go home and stay there until he was better. Haynes went gladly, his first holiday for 2 years. He could sit in an armchair and read as in the good old days and not feel any twinge of nervousness about his job. That's me. I love to read. Sometimes I just grab my favorite book and just curl up somewhere warm and just read all day. Anyway, let's get back to our story. After all, Carrot himself had said to go home and not come back until he could walk properly. And he could not only read but could always turn from his books and watch number 2 at work and at play. After morning tea, Maisie and Sonny played together under the window. It was a game with marbles, and the loser of each set had to pay a forfeit. Haynes lost track of their talk until Maisie's voice drew his attention. "But my Rose, this little boy Sonny getting very fresh. He win, you know. He win, and you know what he asked for?" "What?" said Ben. "He asked me for a kiss." "You little whelp," said Ben. "You looking for a wife already?" He unloosened his belt from around his waist and gave Sonny 2 or 3 whacking blows. Sonny screamed. "Don't be the woman's child, McCarthy," said Mrs. Rose. Sonny ran to the far end of the yard, yelling, "You have no right to beat me! You have no right to beat me! You're not my father! You're not my father!" "None of your cheek out there, or you'll get some more," said Mr. Ben. But Mrs. Rose intervened. As soon as the nurse came in for lunch, Ben met her with the tale. And when I gave him one with the belt, he tell me I am not his father." "I see," said the nurse. "Young man, come here." So Mr. Ben is so. Let me read this again. As soon as the nurse came in for lunch, Ben met her with the tale. "And when I give him one with the belt, he tell me I am not his father." "I see," said the nurse. "Young man, come here." "So, Mr. Ben is not your father. You know where your father is? You ever saw him? So you're looking for a woman already? Into the bedroom. Take off all your clothes and prepare yourself." Lord have mercy. "What is she going to do?" Whisper. "What is she going to do?" whispered Haynes to Ella. I hear she does beat him terribly, sir." All morning Mrs. Rose begging the man not to tell the nurse. The nurse had her bath, lunch, a cigarette on the bench with her hair on her shoulders. Then she went in, and soon came the sound of blows and Sonny screams. Mercy, she went murder her son. With the nurse telling him, "Hush, I say, you wouldn't? Well, go on. We'll see who will stop first." But Sonny either could not or would not hush. He got away from her and ran into the yard, then into the kitchen. The nurse followed him, and desperate, he ran up the step into Haynes' room. "Mr. Haynes! Mr. Haynes! Mr. Haynes! Save me, save me, save me, sir!" He dropped on his knees, his hands resting on the floor, his face turned upwards in supplication. He was stark naked and his whole body heaved. Oh my God. All over his skin, the cane had raised red wheels of flesh, one almost continuous from the left shoulder across the chest, almost down to the navel. Boy, if she was in our time now where you have children have rights now and stuff, she could never do this. Beat the child so till him skin wheel up. Why some parents back in the day were brutal. Anyway, let's get on with our reading. Haynes sickened at the sight. Come, get up, don't kneel down. He helped the weeping, quivering boy to his feet and sat on the bed, holding his hand, expecting the nurse to come. But the nurse did not come. Outside was very still, and he understood that they were waiting to see what he would do. He waited a little longer. Nothing. He could not wait forever, so he went to the door. The nurse sat composedly on the little bench. Mrs. Rose stood at one door of the kitchen, apprehension and uncertainty on her gravely handsome face. Maisie was next to her, grinning. At the other door was Phyllis, Ben, and Wilma. He could glimpse behind her, Ben apparently keeping himself in the background. All looked at Haynes, and Haynes looked at the nurse. Ordinarily pale, she was a little red in the face, but otherwise showed no compassion. She held the cane across her knees, a hand gripping each end. She, unperturbed, had ready she was, she frightened him. Nurse, he began falteringly. Don't waste your breath, Mr. Haynes, she said gently, but without a smile. I am not going to let him off one. I am sitting here waiting, and the longer he stays, the worse for him. Oh my God, I feel sorry for the little boy. Her tone and her manner, so controlled and so falsely cool, froze Haynes. Sonny, in the corner of the room, could not see her, but he felt the menace of the woman, and he started to wail again. Oh God, nurse, spare him, said Phyllis. And the apron went to her eyes, so Phyllis started crying. Mrs. Rose spoke to Haynes. Mr. Haynes, it's no use. I know the nurse better than you. The best you can do is to bring Sonny out. Sonny, come on to your mother. Is your mother. You must obey, and you have no right in Mr. Haynes' room. But Sonny began to cry in quick, short jerks, which made Haynes fear that he would go into hysterics. Let him come, Mr. Haynes, continued Mrs. Rose. It's better for him. Maisie, inside, you wretch. Maisie, inside, you wretch. Wilma, go on with your work. Phyllis, child, go on to town with your basket. The group broke up. Mrs. Rose disappeared in the kitchen. Ben could not be seen. It was left for Haynes to do something, if something was to be done. Come along, Sonny, he said. I'll go with you. Come on. But Sonny threw himself on the floor again. He was almost foaming now. If Haynes could have taken the blows for him, he would have done so. Oh my God, I feel sorry for this little boy. Parents in those days were brutal, man, when them set out to beat you, Never had Haynes' mother even hinted at the possibility of his being beaten. Come, he said, bending down and trying to raise the boy. Come. You will hurt your foot, Mr. Haynes, said the nurse. And it's no use you bringing him. He has to come to me by himself, and he knows it. Mommy, I beg your pardon. Mr. Haynes, beg Mommy pardon for me. Mommy, beg your pardon. Mommy, beg your pardon, sneered the nurse, and she showed her teeth in a smile for the first time. She shook the cane playfully at him. Doggy, look bone, she said. Mrs. Rose came resolutely out. Nurse, she said, it's your child. Nurse, she said, it's your child to do as you like with him. But don't tell him that doggy look bone. I can't bear to hear you say that thing. It isn't what I tell him, my Rose. It is what I am going to do to him. It isn't what I tell him, my Rose. It is what I am going to do to him. Doggy, coming for bone. Longer doggy stay, sweeter the bone. That's a phrase. Mrs. Rose came to Haynes' door. I am sorry for all of this, Mr. Haynes, but you see how it is, and the longer he stopped, the worse for him. Come on, Sonny. Perhaps your mother will spare you if you come at once. Come on, you remember the last time? At last, Sonny, with a despairing look at Haynes, walked slowly down the steps. His naked little body, all white with red wheals, his naked little body, all white with red wheals, groveling on its hands and knees, crawled inch by inch towards his mother. Oh my God, this is past wickedness. She sat watching him come, each hand still gripping an end of the cane, as still and as cold as a marble statue. Doggy coming at last, eh? Bone sweet. Come on, Doggy. Go on, Sonny, said Mrs. Rose. It's your mother. Go on. Spare him, nurse, said Mr. Haynes. Spare him. The nurse did not answer. She had her eyes fixed on the boy. When he stood within a foot of her, she spoke to him. So you reach? Oh, you want to go again? No, Mommy, he said. Oh, I see. I thought you wanted to go off again. You can go if you want, you know. You're staying or you're going? Tell me. I'm staying, Mommy, he said. She rose above him, and he went flat down in the dust before her. She cut him across the shoulders and cut him again and again with the strap. And as he rolled screaming in the dirt, she pointed to the door. Wow. Go to the bedroom, she said, and anxious for even that short respite, he ran inside. She followed him. Haynes locked his door, and overwhelmed with shame, tried in vain to shut out the thud of the cane on the little body, the yells and the scream, and the hush, I tell you. The yells and the screams and the hush, I tell you, hush of his mother. He felt that he should have done something, that he should do something. At each blow, he winced as if it had fallen on his own flesh. As he moved across the room, he struck his damaged foot a sharp blow on the edge of the chair, and a stab of pain struck him. Throwing himself on the bed, he buried his face in the pillow and cried. Oh my God. Anybody would have cried for what happened to the little boy, and then him got hurt his foot. The screams were getting less, but the blows were still falling. And she's still beating the child, you know, when she sent the child in the room, she's still beating him. Can you hear they say? The screams were getting less, but the blows were still falling. Good God, was she going to kill the child? Hush, I tell you. I will lick you until you hush. And Sonny hushed at last. Haynes called Ella. Get a room at once, Ella, he said. I'm going to leave here as soon as my foot is better. He would not stay a moment, so he make up his mind to leave again. He would not stay a moment longer than was necessary in the same house with that woman. He dreaded the thought of seeing her again. Had his foot not been damaged, and also for Mrs. Rose's sake, he would have left at once. He should have saved Sonny. But what right had he to interfere? There were no laws about child beating on the island. He thought of the long wheel to the navel and shivered. Never did he want to see her again. Never. He thought of his own peaceful childhood and limpid life in his mother's house and wished that he could go back to it and never leave again. That part of the book that we just read was really sad. Yeah, and a lot of children I know have gone through this. Growing up, they get a lot of beating, abuse. Really sad, really sad. But anyway, we end on that note. So when we come on again, we'll be at, we stop at chapter 6. So when we come on again, we will start at chapter 6. So that is the ending of chapter 5. Alright, so we'll end it there for now. And we'll be back. Yeah, the other book that I said I'm gonna start sharing with you guys, that book written by by Ruth Heron. I'm gonna read that book with you. Go through that book on Saturday. So we'll start going through that book on Saturday. Definitely. Wasn't able to do it last week Saturday as I had said. My apologies, but we're gonna go through it on Saturday. Alright guys, I'm gonna get moving to go into the town of Brownstown. So you all have a wonderful afternoon, have a wonderful evening, have a wonderful night, and I will see you soon. Thank you for joining me. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share. I'm trying to reach right to my over 50 subscribers so I can go live on my page. Alright, so thank you. Have a blessed day. Bye.